The year is 1613. Russia is in chaos. Years of famine, foreign invasion, and civil unrest have left the country reeling. The once mighty nation is now a shadow of its former self, struggling to maintain any semblance of order or stability. The people are desperate, and the land is ravaged by conflict and suffering. This period, known as the Time of Troubles, saw the end of the Rurik Dynasty, which had ruled for centuries. The Rurik Dynasty, with its deep roots in Russian history, had provided a sense of continuity and stability. But now, with its fall, the nation was plunged into uncertainty and despair.
But from the ashes, a new dynasty would rise, the Romanovs. The Romanovs, a family of noble lineage, were seen as a beacon of hope in these dark times. Their rise to power was not just a political shift, but a symbol of renewal and resilience for the Russian people. In 1613, a young nobleman named Mikhail Romanov was elected Tsar. His election was a turning point, a moment of collective aspiration for a better future. Mikhail, though young, was seen as a figure who could lead the nation out of its turmoil. His election marked the beginning of a dynasty that would rule Russia for over 300 years. The Romanov dynasty would go on to shape the course of Russian history, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's identity and legacy.
Mikhail, though young and inexperienced, brought a sense of stability back to Russia. His leadership was characterized by a commitment to restoring order and rebuilding the nation. Despite his youth, he showed a remarkable ability to navigate the complex political landscape of the time. He was a deeply religious man, seen as pious and just. His faith played a crucial role in his governance, guiding his decisions and actions. Mikhail's piety earned him the respect and trust of his people, who saw him as a moral and righteous leader. Mikhail's reign marked the beginning of a period of slow recovery and consolidation for Russia. Under his rule, the nation began to heal from the wounds of the past. Efforts were made to rebuild the economy, strengthen the military, and restore the rule of law.
He focused on healing the wounds of the Time of Troubles, addressing the deep-seated issues that had plagued the nation. Mikhail's policies aimed at bringing about social and economic stability, ensuring that the horrors of the past would not be repeated, restoring order and strengthening the central government. His administrative reforms laid the groundwork for a more efficient and centralized state, capable of managing the vast and diverse territories of Russia. His successors would build upon this foundation, continuing the work of consolidation and expansion. The Romanov rulers who followed Mikhail were determined to transform Russia into a formidable power on the European stage, expanding Russia's borders and transforming it into a major European power. Through strategic marriages, military conquests, and diplomatic efforts, the Romanovs extended their influence and secured Russia's place among the great powers of Europe.
However, the early Romanovs also faced significant challenges. Governing a vast and diverse empire was no easy task, and the new dynasty had to contend with numerous internal and external threats. Russia was a vast and diverse land, difficult to govern. The sheer size of the territory, coupled with its diverse population, presented unique challenges for the Romanov rulers. They had to find ways to unify the nation while respecting its regional differences. The legacy of the Time of Troubles cast a long shadow, influencing the policies and decisions of the early Romanovs. The memory of this chaotic period served as a constant reminder of the fragility of order and the importance of strong leadership. And the threat of rebellion was never far away. The Romanovs had to remain vigilant, always prepared to quell uprisings and maintain control. Their ability to navigate these challenges would determine the stability and longevity of their rule. Despite these challenges, the Romanovs achieved significant progress. They oversaw cultural and scientific advancements, fostering a period of enlightenment and growth. The legacy of the Romanov dynasty is a testament to their resilience and vision for a stronger Russia. The people of Russia, under Romanov rule, began to experience a renewed sense of hope and possibility. The efforts to rebuild and strengthen the nation were not just about political power, but about improving the lives of ordinary citizens. The Romanov legacy continues to influence modern Russia, a reminder of a time when the nation rose from the ashes to become a major power. Their story is one of resilience, determination, and the enduring spirit of the Russian people. Perhaps the most famous Romanov ruler was Peter the Great, the grandson of Mikhail Romanov. Mikhail Romanov was the founder of the Romanov dynasty, which ruled Russia for over 300 years. His reign marked the end of the time of troubles, a period of political crisis and foreign invasion. Peter, inheriting this legacy, was determined to elevate Russia to new heights. Ascending to the throne in 1682, Peter was a Tsar obsessed with modernization. From a young age, he was fascinated by the advancements taking place in Western Europe. He believed that for Russia to become a formidable power, it needed to adopt Western technologies and practices.
He traveled to Western Europe in disguise, a bold move for a ruler of his stature. This journey, known as the Grand Embassy, was unprecedented. Peter wanted to learn firsthand about the innovations that were driving European progress. During his travels, he immersed himself in the study of shipbuilding, navigation, and other technologies. He worked incognito in shipyards, learning the intricacies of naval construction. This hands-on experience was invaluable and would later influence his ambitious plans for the Russian Navy. Upon his return, Peter embarked on a radical program of reforms. He was determined to transform Russia's outdated institutions and practices. His reforms touched every aspect of Russian life, from the military to the church, and even the daily lives of his subjects. He modernized the Russian army and navy, introducing new training methods, tactics, and equipment. The Russian military, once considered backward, began to rival the best in Europe. Peter's efforts laid the foundation for Russia's future military successes. One of his most ambitious projects was the construction of a new city, St. Petersburg. Built on the marshy banks of the Neva River, it was designed to be Russia's window to the west. The city became a symbol of Peter's vision for a modern, Europeanized Russia. Peter also introduced Western fashions and customs to the Russian court. He mandated that nobles shave their beards and adopt Western-style clothing. These changes, though superficial, were part of his broader effort to align Russia with European norms and practices.
Peter's goal was clear: to transform Russia from a backward, landlocked nation into a modern European power. He believed that by adopting Western technologies and practices, Russia could compete with the great powers of Europe. His vision was both ambitious and far-reaching.
Peter's reforms were not without their critics. Many in Russia, especially the conservative boyar aristocracy, viewed his changes with suspicion and hostility. They were deeply attached to traditional Russian ways and saw Peter's westernization efforts as a threat to their way of life. The boyars, with their long beards and traditional robes, became symbols of resistance to Peter's reforms. They saw his decrees as an affront to Russian traditions and values. This resistance was not just cultural, but also political, as many boyars feared losing their power and influence. They saw Peter's reforms as an affront to Russian traditions and values. The tension between the old and the new was palpable, and Peter had to navigate this delicate balance carefully. Despite the opposition, he remained steadfast in his mission to modernize Russia.
Nonetheless, Peter was relentless in his pursuit of modernization. He believed that the future of Russia depended on its ability to adapt and evolve. His determination and vision were instrumental in driving the country forward. His reign saw Russia engage in numerous wars, each one a test of the new military he'd built. These conflicts were not just about territorial expansion, but also about asserting Russia's place on the European stage. Most notably, the Great Northern War against Sweden was a defining moment in Peter's reign. This protracted conflict tested the limits of his military reforms and his strategic acumen. The war was brutal and costly, but it ultimately reshaped the balance of power in the region. Victory in this conflict secured Russia's position as a dominant power in the Baltic region. The acquisition of new territories and the establishment of a strong naval presence were key outcomes of this war. These achievements were a testament to Peter's vision and leadership, and cemented Peter's legacy as a military leader of the First Order. His ability to lead and inspire his troops, combined with his strategic foresight, ensured that Russia emerged as a formidable power. Peter the Great's reign was a turning point in Russian history, setting the stage for its future as a major European power. Following Peter the Great, another ruler left an indelible mark on Russia, Catherine the Great. Catherine, originally a German princess, came to the Russian throne through her marriage to Peter the Great's grandson.
Ambitious and intelligent, Catherine embraced the ideals of the Enlightenment, corresponding with leading thinkers like Voltaire. Catherine's reign was marked by territorial expansion, including the annexation of Crimea and the partition of Poland.
She also oversaw a period of cultural flourishing, patronizing the arts and sciences. Under her rule, Russia gained recognition as a great power, not just militarily, but also culturally and intellectually.
However, Catherine's reign also witnessed peasant uprisings, highlighting the growing social tensions within Russian society. The most famous of these was Pugachev's rebellion, a Cossack-led revolt that shook the empire.
While Catherine crushed the rebellion, it served as a stark reminder of the challenges facing the Romanov dynasty. Section 4. Wars and Upheavals. The Romanovs on the world stage. The 19th century saw the Romanov dynasty facing new challenges, both at home and abroad.
The Napoleonic Wars tested the mettle of the Russian army, culminating in Napoleon's invasion of Russia in 1812. While Russia ultimately triumphed, the war exposed the weaknesses of the Tsarist regime and the need for reform.
Later in the century, the Crimean War further highlighted Russia's military limitations. Defeat at the hands of Britain, France, and the Ottoman Empire forced the Romanovs to confront the need for modernization and industrialization to compete with other European powers.
The reign of Alexander II saw the emancipation of the serfs in 1861, a major social reform aimed at modernizing Russia's economy and society. However, this reform, while significant, did not quell the growing unrest among the peasantry and the burgeoning urban working class.
Section 5. The Seeds of Revolution, Industrialization and Unrest. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were a time of rapid industrialization in Russia. This era marked a significant transformation in the Russian economy and society, as the country sought to catch up with the industrial advancements of Western Europe. Factories began to spring up in major cities, and the construction of railroads connected distant regions, facilitating the movement of goods and people. This period witnessed the growth of factories, railroads, and urban centers. The industrial boom led to the rise of new industries, including textiles, steel, and coal mining. Urban centers like St. Petersburg and Moscow became bustling hubs of economic activity, drawing in workers from rural areas in search of better opportunities.
However, industrialization also brought new social problems, including harsh working conditions, low wages, and a widening gap between the rich and the poor. Factory workers often toiled for long hours in unsafe environments, with little regard for their health and well-being. The rapid pace of industrialization also led to overcrowded living conditions in urban areas, as housing could not keep up with the influx of workers. The Romanov government, particularly under Tsar Nicholas II, struggled to address these issues. The Tsarist regime was ill-equipped to handle the social and economic challenges brought about by industrialization. Despite some attempts at reform, the government's efforts were often seen as too little, too late.
Nicholas, while a well-intentioned ruler, was seen as out of touch with the needs of his people. His autocratic style of governance and reliance on a small circle of advisors alienated many Russians. The Tsar's inability to empathize with the struggles of the working class and peasantry further eroded his support. His autocratic style of rule and his resistance to meaningful political reform further alienated him from his subjects. The lack of political freedoms and the suppression of dissent created a climate of discontent and unrest. Many Russians began to question the legitimacy of the Tsarist regime and sought alternative forms of governance.
The 1905 revolution, sparked by Russia's defeat in the Russo-Japanese War, demonstrated the fragility of the Tsarist regime. The war had exposed the weaknesses of the Russian military and the incompetence of the government. The defeat led to widespread protests and strikes, culminating in the Bloody Sunday massacre, where peaceful demonstrators were shot by the Tsar's troops. While Nicholas managed to suppress the revolution, it forced him to make some concessions, including the establishment of the Duma, a legislative assembly. The creation of the Duma was a significant step towards political reform, but it was largely seen as a token gesture. The Tsar retained significant power, and the Duma's influence was limited.
However, these reforms proved too little, too late. The seeds of revolution had been sown, and Russia was on the brink of cataclysmic change. The social and economic inequalities, coupled with the government's inability to address the needs of its people, created a volatile environment. The discontent among the working class and peasantry continued to grow, setting the stage for the eventual downfall of the Romanov dynasty and the rise of the Soviet Union.